I went on a Chromebook rampage. I terrorized the locals. Everybody was just getting chromed. And I just,
Sorry. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to your fifth cup, right? Of Linux
I
Plus.
can count.
Yeah. Welcome to your fifth cup of Linux Plus coffee. My name's Jason. I am joined, as always, by my buddy Schykle. How you been, man?
Living the dream. Living the dream. So I kind of miss making Linux videos, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I haven't made very many videos even on my personal channel. I've been busy with a new job.
Okay, so obviously you have to tell us about your job because you
Yes.
transformed from being a mini fan into a mini employee, right?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So I work now at the local mini dealership, which is kind of insane to me. And it's like my dream job at this point. I love minis. I always have. I've been a customer there for about 5 years now, and now I work with them, which is really cool. And I want to keep building up those bridges and keep working with the brand and the people that I love, and it's really great. I mean, sometimes they're just like, "Hey, like, we need you to like go pick up a car," and like literally in another city at another dealership, they're like, "Drive over there with someone, pick up a car, and drive back." And it's like, "Okay, thanks." Yes,
So pay me to drive my favorite car, basically, right?
exactly.
How did you land this? Was it from all of your I don't want to call it influencer-esque activity, but I mean, you were like a genuinely enthusiastic mini fan on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere that you exist, right? Did that
It
have something to do
was
with it?
surprisingly not.
Huh.
Actually, what was really weird about it was the most sort of normal run-of-the-mill kind of job interview I think I've ever had. I applied online and then I went in for the interview with my now manager, and it went really, really well. And I got a call back like 3 days after the interview, and he was just like, "Hey, I just wanted to call and let you know that if you're still interested, you've got the job." And I was like,
Fantastic, man. That's so
"Okay."
cool. That's awesome. Congratulations. What has your computing life been like lately?
Absolute chaos. Chaos doesn't begin to cover it. I went on a Chromebook rampage, and I terrorized the locals. Everybody was just getting chromed. And I just
Sorry. I don't know. For some reason, that sounded dirty, but
it
hilariously
does sound a
dirty. Like
little
everyone was just getting chromed. I don't know.
it's just
Let's talk about our mugs, all right? Because I've been
hmm.
dying. I've been dying to show people this mug.
Oh,
Oh,
this one.
beautiful.
Oh.
As you can see, Schykle here is modeling the customized Linux Plus coffee mug available at shop.spreadshirt.com/L4eStore. So we launched the new Linux for Everyone merch stores like last November or December. And just this last weekend, yesterday on Sunday, I finally bought merch from my own store. I feel like such a bad Linux for Everyone captain. But I made up for it. I bought 5 mugs, all customized. A customized mouse pad, and what's really cool is, Nassif, right? He's working on the new website, and he does the majority of the thumbnails for us on the video channels. So I offered to send him, something from the merch store for all of his help, and he came back to me. He sends me this link from the shop, and it's this gorgeous version of our mouse pad where like my designs, okay, I'm just like slapping logos on there and going, okay, sell it, right? So the mouse pad, it's just a white mouse pad, and it's got the giant Linux for Everyone logo on it and centered. And so what he does is is he takes it and like shrinks it down up into the top left corner, makes it really, really nice. And then in like this nice cursive font, I think it's called Lobster. On the very bottom, centered, it says linuxforeveryone.com. And it just looked like so elegant. It looked like this elegant letterhead, right? And so then I was like, oh my God, that's right. You can customize the crap out of this stuff. Yeah. So I took a cue from him and I put the Linux for Everyone logo on the top left and then just did the customizer, right? And added the Linux plus coffee one, added Make It Linux, and added I Make FOSS in each corner. And then in the center, I wrote Welcome Home.
Oh,
and ordered
so
it.
good.
And I was like, oh my God,
Yes.
it only cost like $1 extra to do all that customizing. So
like, almost nothing.
Anyway, I bought a ton of stuff so that we're going to do an unboxing video and critique the quality of the merch and show people like how cool it is to customize it. But I wanted to show you my mug for today was a Lana special. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Optimus Prime.
That is amazing.
Oh, hold on.
How does it work?
Hold on. Whoops. I don't want to spill it. Okay. Aww.
What?
And you're steaming coffee and being kept hot, of course.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Oh! Linux for Everyone hit 50,000 subscribers over the weekend.
Yes.
And this is the first.
Yes.
This is the first video that that should be published after that's happened. So, hey, producer guy, producer Dave, can you get some cool like explosion graphics and like confetti falling on the screen?
50,000. That's the way to go. That's actually like a huge number. Just the fact that these are people, and there's like you could fill multiple auditoriums with them. 50,000 is a lot of people.
Yeah, that's like a Foo Fighters concert at like Wembley or something, right?
It's a lot.
Lest I forget our library and Odyssey audience also, there's something like 2,300, 2,200 people there as well. So, well, we want to talk about a few things. You have been really hyped about Elementary OS 6.0. And then we want to talk about Valve's SteamPal handheld gaming console.
Handheld PC console.
Yes, thank you. We want to talk about Valve's alleged, because until Valve confirms it, it's still alleged, handheld PC gaming console called the SteamPal. But let's kick it off with Elementary OS 6.
Hyped is definitely an understatement, but this happens every single time Elementary does something. So maybe it's an obsession, maybe it's just a healthy addiction. Either one works for me. But a lot is changing with Elementary OS 6, and a lot of it is visual. There's a ton of visual changes. I mean, there's a dark style coming to it. There's different colors, like accent colors. They've got blueberry and grape and lime and banana, all kinds of.
Are those the actual names
colors.
For the accents?
Those are the names of the colors, which I absolutely love.
Cool. You can't go wrong with fruit. Everybody loves fruit.
You really can't.
No.
It's perfect. And I think what I really love about it is that it has taken them a while to get to the point where they're starting to implement things like dark styles, but they've paid so much attention to how they do it and not just the fact that it's there, that I think it's really gonna show in the final product. I've played with the beta, I've done a bit of testing with the early access builds, and they really put an effort towards trying not to step on the toes of both users and developers, because if a developer's designing an app to work a certain way and all of a sudden the system just goes, all right, now flip this bit and switch to something else, and they're not predicting it, like stuff could seriously break, and that affects not just aesthetics, but I mean, it could be an accessibility issue. You know, people can't use an app that they can't read.
That's true. So all of the apps that are designed for Elementary OS in the AppCenter, I'm assuming that those will pretty easily inherit light or dark styles.
Likely, but there is the possibility, because all of them can sort of do their own thing in certain ways. I think typically not only are they encouraged to really use the elementary OS style sheet as much as possible rather than custom sheets, I think the other thing is that they tend to prefer to do that as well because feeling and looking like a native app is crucial to the user experience and it's mutually beneficial, I think, for both third-party developers and elementary OS.
I haven't followed Elementary as much in the last several months, but has there been any progress with the App Center for everyone? And just
I
to,
don't
I
have
guess we should catch maybe catch people up on that. In a nutshell, App Center for Everyone is Elementary's attempt to kind of bring together all of the indie app developers and help them spread their software and help them spread some mind share beyond just Elementary OS. Right. So I think we're talking about having the App Center as a flat pack, right? Where people can just install App Center on their own distribution and automatically inherit all of those designed for elementary OS applications, which in many cases are brilliant. The core of any great app is do one thing and do it really well. And that has always what's jumped out at me about all the elementary OS apps.
Yeah.
And so, the great thing here is that this doesn't just mean having access to those apps. It means that those developers can get paid for those apps, because in the App Center on elementary OS, developers can charge, X amount of money for their apps. It's a suggested donation, essentially. But this hasn't really been done before, if I'm not mistaken, on any modern Linux distribution, right? Where you can open up an app store and be able to support the developers directly through that software center with some coin. That's what's exciting about it for the developers and for certain users like me. Like, I would love to be able to just directly support a great application by buying it on my OS. That's not an unheard of type of behavior, right?
Seems pretty normal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I love the way that they implement it as well. There's something very nice about the fact that it is optional, but it doesn't sacrifice the developers being able to declare what they think their app is worth. And I think that's really important, is that you get a feel for what it probably should cost based on whatever time, energy, or resources that the developers put into it. And I think that's great that they sort of get to set the standard on, what a fair asking price for their work is.
So have you been able to play with the new Elementary OS 6 installer yet?
I have, yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm really liking the look of it. I know that looks aren't everything, but when it comes to the first experience you have with an operating system, I mean, before you even experience the operating system, it's a completely different design language than I'm used to. And I think that it's really going to impress a lot of people. It impressed me. It's still in beta right now, but I think the biggest thing about it at the moment is that encryption is a default setting. It's something that's just like, hey, encryption, and you could choose not to, but it's just like the next step in part of the installer is encrypt the disk. It's not an option you tick in like a list of things like it was in Ubiquity, the previous installer. It's actually its own page as part of the step-by-step process. This also has a lot of other benefits, because the key thing about this installer is that every install is an OEM install. So whether you install it yourself or someone installs it at a factory somewhere, or you install it for a friend, it's the same image you use for everything, which means there's no separate installer images or boot options.
Yeah.
But it also means that when you first turn it on, you don't have like temporary passwords that somebody's had to set for you. It's part of the first run experience. Once it's installed, then you set up a user, then you set up a password. They've completely separated the two, which means you don't have to worry about those things anymore. And it sucks handing someone a laptop you're trying to install Linux on for them, and then they're like, hey, what's the password? And you're just...
That's smart. That's a way more elegant way to yeah, to approach that. Does the new installer have dual boot support, where you
Ooh.
can, where it'll perhaps auto detect another Windows or Linux installation and allow you to resize and do all of that, kind of like Ubiquiti and many of the other installers?
That's a really good question. I haven't actually tried it on a disk that has another OS on it.
Okay, I might give it a shot then, and maybe capture some B-roll or something
Yeah.
to.
If I'm not mistaken, I remember that at least the Pop! OS installer didn't do that for quite some
Doesn't.
time, and
It
I don't
still
know if it
doesn't,
still
as far as
does.
I know. I mean, I've done some fresh installs just last week.
Quite likely that it doesn't then, but I would be really curious to find out because I know Elementary OS is still using Grub at the moment, which is the
Ah,
bootloader that
right,
basically
right.
everything uses, and
Except for
Pop!
Pop.
OS is Pop! OS and Solus, I think, really are the only two outliers there. So there's a possibility, but
I miss Grub. When I use Pop! OS, I miss Grub because I do have one system where I'm booting Windows and Pop! OS, and the only, I guess, stable solution for me is to go into the BIOS and then
yeah.
manually choose the boot drive or the boot partition every single time that I boot up, and I miss that functionality of Grub. So yeah, I know I
I'm
can
a little
add. I
crazy.
know I can add Grub back in, and I would love to do that and use Grub Customizer and just make it all amazing. But it's my production machine, so I'm not risking anything.
Yeah, you got to keep that in tip-top
It's
shape. It's not
clean,
worth
it's
it.
stable. I'm not messing with anything.
I remember the last time you did, and it all fell
Oh
apart.
my god, I don't even know. I don't even know how that happened.
It was really
I
bad.
took out this system. I took it outside and I opened up everything and I just dusted it out with some compressed air, and somehow that led to one of my drives getting destroyed. And then in the process of trying to fix the drive, I lost. Yeah, it was an absolute inconceivable nightmare that could only happen to me, as my wife would say. That would only happen to me. So you went outside to clean the dust out of your tower, and then lost 3 days to like data recovery and reinstalling OS and software and just yeah. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Any other thoughts on Elementary?
I'm just really excited for it. It's been a long time in the works, and I know they had a lot of plans. I'm really glad to see it in the phase that it's in because it's so close to being ready. I mean, there's still things that they're working on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna blow people away. I think it really sets itself apart from what you expect from Linux. It feels very much separated from that typical Linux distro feel.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I will say that the best feeling Linux distro on my old 2013 MacBook Pro was Elementary 5. Something else I wanted to throw in about Elementary as an organization, which I think this would interest people to know. They approached me several months ago asking if I wanted to produce a series of videos for Elementary 6. And not just, hey, will you volunteer your time? It's like, we will pay you very competitive rates to produce these videos for us. And they were talking to me and several other video producers. So I ended up turning them down just, because of time constraints and stuff. But I was so encouraged by that. Not because I was getting a job, but because they have the resources and the funding and the support to be able to go out and say, we want to professionally hire people to to produce something that shines a beautiful light on our product and brings it to more people and gives us like better marketing appeal and all that stuff. And so it's nice. I love that they are, they're rising.
Yep.
Elementary is rising, and I can't wait to see how people embrace version 6. Hey Schykle, do you remember Steam boxes?
I do. throwback.
What'd you think about them?
I kind of liked the idea of them. It was a huge thing for a while. I would open YouTube and it was just building insane like Steam boxes, Steam machines.
Were you into Linux
I,
at the time? I don't
I
remember if
wasn't. I
you
don't
weren't.
think I
Okay.
was.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. I wasn't either. But I was there in the room with Gabe Newell at 2013 CES or 2012 CES. I forgive me. I don't remember which year. But I was there in the room with Gabe Newell when they announced the concept of Steam boxes, and they had along these three tables in the room, they had systems from, I think, iBuyPower and Falcon Northwest and all of these Puget systems, all of these really slick looking variety of sizes custom PCs, except for the fact that they were running SteamOS. They didn't do so well. Not for lack of trying, but I just I don't think that gaming on Linux was viable back then. This was before Proton, and before we had like 7,000 Windows only games that we could just install and run on the Steam for Linux client, before Steam Play, before Steam Link, before so many of these pieces of the puzzle the Valve has been building. And the newest piece is allegedly called SteamPal. SteamPal is the working title. And again, take all of this with everything we're going to talk about in this segment with a grain of salt, because Ars Technica has an exclusive on this. And although they have confirmed with multiple sources inside of Valve that this hardware is being prototyped and worked on, I don't consider anything official until Valve actually announces it. Do I believe it's happening? I do. And SteamPal is basically going to be a Nintendo Switch-like handheld gaming console that runs Linux. Because of course it does, right? Of course, after all of this work that they've done on Proton, now Linux gaming is more viable. What we know, according to the Ars Technica article, is that it will be a little bit bigger than the Nintendo Switch. It'll have the type of D-pad and face buttons that you expect, and a touchscreen interface as well. And it will be most likely, it has to be, right, a system on a chip, like a Intel or AMD Ryzen type of APU. There's no way that
it would be crazy if it wasn't.
Yeah, it won't be dedicated graphics. So let's unpack this a little bit. I have concerns and excitement kind of beating each other up. My question is, Schykle, who do you market this to?
You remember, what was it, the PSP?
Oh, of course. I still have the PSP. Yeah.
I think I still have one as well. Mm-hmm. I really feel like that market, maybe not that market like as they grew up, but the same market that it would have been now, is almost the market that you push this towards. Nintendo's appeal, I think, is really that generally there's a lot of wholesomeness about their consoles. There's a very different feel in the atmosphere of Nintendo titles and the way they design their system, whereas this feels a little more raw, almost that sort of appeal, but with the added benefit of it being totally digital.
Interesting. So it's actually a little bit more like was it the PSP Go?
It's a Vita?
Was it the Vita Go? They tried for, I don't know if it was the PSP or the Vita, but they tried an all digital version of that. It was way ahead of its time and it totally flopped. Now I think we're absolutely ready for that now. So you would pitch it as a handheld gaming device for grown-ups.
Just about.
For PC enthusiasts, maybe.
For PC enthusiasts, yeah.
Okay.
I think the one thing that I find interesting, and I don't know where the marketing's going to try and cover it if it does go in that route, is that we've seen things like Steam Link, I believe they call it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the one that allows you to basically play on any device.
Yeah.
So I wonder how it's gonna compete with their own market there that basically at no cost turns any mobile device into a handheld gaming system.
I don't know. It's uh if I was Valve, I would be terrified of marketing this device. Okay, to your point, I think that there are people out there who are purists who, yes, I can load up my Raspberry Pi with a bunch of retro games, right? I can emulate those. But I'm the type of person who really gets more enjoyment out of playing that on the hardware it was intended on, being played on, right? I would rather pull out my Game Boy and play the original Tetris or Legend of Zelda or, any of those like Mario Tennis on the Game Boy, just those, because it just feels natural to me. I guess you could use Steam Link to beam a game to your phone, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to maybe have a separate controller, one of those controller attachments, or it has to have a touch interface, or I don't know. There might be latency that gets introduced.
That's a
There's
very good point,
there's so
actually.
many, but then again, what really concerns me about this device is how heavy do they lean into the fact that it's based on Linux? Linux gamers, right? Linux gamers love Steam, but Valve can't sell this just to Linux gamers. They won't sell enough of them.
No.
They won't. And I feel like most PC gamers, and when I say PC gamers, I'm talking about people who game on a PC, independent of the operating system. Okay. I consider myself a PC gamer. Whether I'm on Linux or on Windows, I'm playing Blizzard games, which aren't available on Steam. I am playing games on Epic that aren't available on Steam. I might be playing games from Xbox or, the Windows Store sometimes that aren't available on Steam. And so my point is, how many of these PC gamers are just Steam diehards who are okay with the fact that they maybe can't play Call of Duty Warzone on this device, or they can't play any number of exclusives that Epic and Blizzard and all the other platforms have. And on top of that, there are certain Windows only games that they still can't play on Linux. It's a small number, but as you know, Schykle, the games that have really heavy DRM anti-cheat do not
That'll
work on
break stuff.
Linux yet. That's my concern is would you buy that?
I'm torn in a way because a majority of the games that I do play are on Steam, and it does have the benefit of being such a massive library.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about how that library really gets cut down when you factor in the control type, when you factor in, like you were saying, the operating system. Some things won't run as well as they either should, or perhaps they don't run the way that they need to in terms of compatibility layers. If we're using things like Proton or Wine, or if we have games that are native on Linux but also have Windows versions, how do we expect the balance between which version of Proton is used to play out? Whether it's using the Windows version or the Linux version. There have been instances where the Windows version via Proton runs better than the native Linux version.
Yeah.
Do they default to that then? And does the user have to manually control this?
That's a good
To
question.
me, these are user sort of inconveniences that I think would really downgrade the experience.
Yeah, and I think if you're selling a handheld gaming console of any kind for a mass audience in the East, there's a lot of Switch-like PC gaming handhelds like the GPD Win 3
Yep.
and others, but they really don't have a foothold in the West at all because they're bulky and they're expensive and they're not really that powerful for what you're paying. And I think that Valve's real challenge here is they can't be selling this SteamPal device to the Proton DB tinkerers.
Yep.
Not it's got to be like, no, you have to take those decisions that you were talking about. You have to take those user inconveniences, as you said, out of the user's hands and just make it literally turn it on, install it, and play it.
Yep.
Now I can see one scenario where this becomes a little bit more appealing, even without support from like Epic Games and Blizzard and all that. Microsoft xCloud.
Oh.
That totally works on any Linux browser that supports WebRTC. So once xCloud comes out of beta, if it isn't already, I don't think it is out of beta yet. Considering it's, xCloud supports touchscreen and gamepad interface, which the SteamPal will have both, that opens up some interesting possibilities, right?
That could
And,
be
and
really
then,
interesting.
yeah, so I don't know. And maybe for all of the rest, maybe you just Steam Link your main PC to your handheld if you're at least at home. But again, I think that all that power user stuff is not going to fly if they want to sell a mainstream PC gaming handheld, which I don't think has ever been done on a wide scale, right? It's always the
Not like
proprietary
this.
stuff like Nintendo and Sony. On the one hand, if they can pull it off, you've instantly got a much bigger library than any other handheld can offer from Nintendo or
Blows it out of the
Sony.
water.
Just obliterates it, right?
Yep.
On the other hand, there's no way it's going to be $300. It's going to be like 600. I don't know. I can't even speculate what the price would be.
The
I
other
don't.
thing
Go ahead.
I'm curious about is how they're going to manage the different spec requirements of games. The benefit that companies like Nintendo have with their consoles is that they set specific limits on their hardware, what kind of capabilities these chips have, and
Yeah.
are exposed through the software. And they have their own engines that games can use, and they have all of these things sort of figured out. And games are designed and to maximize that hardware to the best they possibly can, which is why a rather insignificant processor on the Switch, like, it's not like weak, it's just not impressive realistically. But what it actually ends up doing is great. The fact that it renders these graphics and can do it on full HD screens with no problem. I mean, it's because it's designed from the ground up with those limits in mind. And with this kind of situation, the majority of games, actually, I'll go as far as to say all of them, because right now it doesn't exist, none of them take into consideration the fact that it's going to be limited to this particular hardware. So the range of success you're going to have is going to be just totally inconsistent.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like on a handheld, I've never. I sort of don't want to be messing around. Like, okay, for example, I want to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider on my SteamPal, right? I don't want to go in there and spend an hour figuring out, okay, how can I get 30 FPS? Maybe I'll bump the resolution down to X, and then I'll reduce the anti-aliasing a little bit, and then I'll let's take the I don't know, subsurface scattering. Like, let's like it's 2 pages of graphics settings, right? I don't want to mess
Yep.
with that. I want
Having
to turn
to
it
even
on
think
and have
about
it look
it.
good and just enjoy it. And
Yes.
certainly games like Hades are perfect for this type of device. But
The
the more
core
AAA
of it,
mainstream ones, like I've tried Shadow of the Tomb Raider even on a Ryzen 7 4800H, which has it's on the it's on this actually. It's on the Tuxedo Pulse 15.
beautiful.
And totally capable processor, but when you're talking about like AAA graphically intensive gaming, I have to lower Shadow of the Tomb Raider all the way down to very low graphic settings to get playable 1080p. That's not what I want out of a handheld, you know?
Oh,
And so I think
convenience is
that
like the number one point of a handheld. It's literally just go.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the number
Yeah.
one thing.
You know, I love to be the positive, optimistic guy, but I see so many hurdles for Valve here, and I don't doubt that they can pull it off because they have built all of these pieces. Like they have controller experience. They have done a fantastic job with the design and production of the Valve Index. I just hope that they understand that they cannot hope to be successful if they're just selling this to a a Linux hardcore audience and B a Steam hardcore audience, right? Because
Yeah.
I think PC gamers expect variety. They expect their entire ecosystem. It's not like when I buy a Nintendo Switch, I expect that I will just get Nintendo games. That's what I'm buying it for. To a lesser extent, same when I buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. So I don't know. That's all I've got. It's rumored to be coming out by the end of 2021, and I think the only way it becomes viable is if it's affordable. It is not necessarily marketed as a Linux device, and if maybe AMD has developed some badass semi-custom chip for this device, then I could
That would
see
be
it. I could see it being very promising. But got any more thoughts about it?
For me, the biggest thing is that it sounds amazing. I mean, as somebody who has fallen out of that tinkery phase, this actually makes me want to tinker with stuff again. It's really weird. Like, I don't know, I feel more interested about tinkering with this than I would a Nintendo Switch.
When people buy a console, they understand that they're not getting everything. And
That's
so
true.
if the SteamPal was positioned as a console, not necessarily like this is PC gaming in the palm of your hand. They can't do that because PC gaming is everything, right? They have to market it in such a way that it's understood that it's a console and that you're not going to be able to play everything, but the experience is worth it. Maybe. I mean, I always hope for the best for Valve because I love what they have done for Linux gaming together with Codeweavers. Do you remember the NVIDIA Shield?
I do.
Not
Yes.
the
I
tablet
thought it
and
was-
not the TV box, but the actual like flip up NVIDIA Shield console.
Oh, I didn't even no, not until you mentioned it. I think I've
Ah,
seen it once in a video and brief mention. That was it. I mean,
that was actually, I was really sad that they didn't continue that because I thought it was brilliant. My review, and at the time you have to remember that it was impossible to think about like lying in bed with a handheld console, an
Yeah.
Android-based console playing Skyrim
that's a
in
big
like
leap.
2012 or 2013, and that was actually the title of my review at Forbes was Skyrim in bed, the NVIDIA Shield review. But that thing was great because they had this Wi-Fi Direct type of solution where your GeForce card would talk directly to the NVIDIA Shield, and it would have that Steam Link style functionality where you could just beam it from your main PC to your Shield anywhere in the house and later online, and you would get a pretty, not completely latency free, but pretty enjoyable gaming experience. And the SteamPal feels a little bit like the successor to that to me.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, I hope it works out. But
It would be
we'll keep an
incredible.
eye
I
on
would
it.
buy one.
I would buy one. I'll probably buy one. It probably doesn't matter how much it costs. I'll probably buy one.
No.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think
Yeah.
that's our show. If you have any suggestions for future topics, you can leave a comment on this video, or you can email linuxforeveryone@pm.me. Schykle, where can everyone find you? Where can we stalk you
can
at?
Find me on Twitter at Schykle, Instagram at Schykle if you want to follow my photography posts. I've been doing a little bit of work on that. And if you want to see my car, my Instagram account
Your
for my new
car.
car, ZY Jello on
ZY
Instagram. I
Jello.
named it
Okay.
Jello.
Jello. Oh my god. This car is like this illustrious shade of citrusy yellow and with like a touch of green or something. It really pops. And
It
I'm sure
does.
that you get a lot of attention in that car. It's a gorgeous looking car.
There's a lot of windows rolling down when I drive by, and it's quite something.
Well, you can keep up with Linux for Everyone in a number of places. The show notes for this video or this podcast episode will have all of those places. We're on Matrix now. Did you know that? We've got a
Yes.
Matrix channel now. It's bridged with a few channels of Discord, so getting the communities together, which is awesome. We're on Fostodon. We're on Library and Odyssey. We're on Discord. We're on Telegram, so you can find us there.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, for another episode of Linux Plus Coffee. It's been wonderful doing this, Jason. It's always a pleasure recording with you.
And you, dude.
And
Thank you.
I love
missed
being
it.
here.
I missed it. I really did.
Until next time, take care and take care of each other.
Bye. Done.
Yay! Words.
Words are hard, as you have said before. You, Google.
I'm a virtual assistant, but your words are still very real. Please keep them respectful. If you're frustrated with something, I'm open to your feedback.